Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mutrix. What's up, Jimmy?
Hello, my friend. How are you, Tyson?
I am doing well. Got in the pool last night. It was cold outside, but warm in the pool, baby. So it was good. What about you?
Oh, we had a little bit of drama here at the office yesterday. I had to let a lawyer go, and it was somebody who was well liked, but they had done some things that we couldn't let them continue, and I was sad to see her go, but it was obviously the right decision, and now we're sort of dealing with getting the team on board.
Yeah, it's never a fun time. It's my least favorite thing of running a firm is letting someone go, but sometimes it's just necessary. And from what you talked about in the guild, it was not excusable. So I can't blame you at all, but it just sucks you had to go through that.
Well, let's go ahead and introduce our new friend, Tom Case. He's a civil rights lawyer up in Chicago. He helps people that are in detention or jail who are abused, and he also represents people in the gig economy, which is pretty exciting, and we're glad to have him on the show. Tom, thanks for being with us, man.
No, thanks for doing this, guys. I have probably listened to all or nearly all of the episodes, so appreciate what you guys are doing.
That's the best kind of listener is what I hear, is that the ones that listen to every episode. So I think that's bad.
Highly bingeable.
Yeah. Show. So let's talk about your journey a little bit. Tell us about how you got to where you are now and where you started.
Yeah. So there's not a whole lot of intentionality to it until recently. I graduated college with kind of a not a useless degree, but a degree that doesn't point you in a direction. And I just went to these kind of on-campus interviews, and this guy came in who had like a husband and wife fair housing plaintiffs firm up in the mountains of Northern California. And I just liked the guy. I didn't know anything about fair housing or law, really. I'd had a bunch of people tell me I should go to law school because I didn't have anything else to do. But I went and worked for this guy. I really liked and still keep in touch with him and the other lawyers there and the family. It's like kind of my mentor, second father figure. And I spent 3 years there, learned a lot about fair housing law and plaintiffs' work and kind of how that small business was run. Felt kind of comfortable going to law school after that. Went to law school, did okay, did some clerking, but got kind of clerkships at weird times. So I had these weird 4 and 5 month periods between them to do. So I spent the first one at a well-known consumer class action shop on the plaintiff side here in town or in Chicago. I spent the second one at a really well-regarded kind of civil rights firm that mostly does wrongful conviction work here in the city. So, I got a kind of, by the time I was ready to make the first, like, what law firm am I going to work at to start my career choice after the second clerkship, I worked at a tiny plaintiff side fair housing firm, plaintiff side consumer class action firm, and a plaintiff side traditional civil rights, 1983 firm. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went back to the fair housing firm and said, hey, can I open a Chicago office? And, we did that, and it was working pretty well. We had some good relationships with referral sources in Chicago and Indiana. But then I got married and we got pregnant. And I don't know if you've ever taken any fair housing cases, but it's not you're not going to be buying any yachts. And, my wife was a lawyer, two folks worth of, nice law school debt. And, she wasn't sure what she wanted to do after we had a kid. So I panicked. And then I went to one of the big law defense firms here in town that, they'll, if you got a couple of clerkships and a GPA and you're not too old, they'll kind of take you. And, I went there and I basically wrote motions to dismiss securities and consumer class actions for about 2 years. Which is fine. I mean, talk about, you got 6 kinds of coffee machines, you've got people waiting to help you on a moment's, like, there are people whose only job it is to help you find the right people at the firm to help you. Like I remember I needed like a video edited for a pro bono case. And there was a guy in New York who did that, or like data mined out of a 2 million, row spreadsheet. And there's a guy in the New York office in the bowels of some office building who's like the master of Excel. So it was kind of a nice experience to practice that way. But, I could kind of tell pretty close. These kind of were nice people, but they weren't my people. It's a nice place to work, but not my thing. And then out of the blue, I get this recruiter call, and I remember exactly what she said. She said, there are these three guys who just sold a litigation finance hedge fund for about $200 million, and they're starting a plaintiff's firm. You fit the mold of what they're looking for. And this was a shop, Keller Lankner, and I think they'd been around for about maybe a month or two when I got that call. And I started talking to them, and it seemed like an interesting idea. Like, imagine a plaintiff's firm that has a bankroll the size of like a Fortune 500 company, and kind of the damage you can do. And I met with the guys, and it just seemed kind of too interesting, and the pay was right for the needs with the family. And so I went there, and I think I became the second. I can't remember if I was the second or third non-founding lawyer and employee at Keller. And we did some cool stuff. So this guy, Warren Postman, who came to Keller about the same time I did, he was friends with these guys. So two of the three founding partners clerked together on the Supreme Court with Warren. So like in this crew, I was really the dumb one after graduating like in the top 5 of a law school and clerking twice. Like I was very much the dumb one. And Warren had this idea that, all these companies have arbitration clauses, mandatory arbitration clauses, and class action waivers. And he took that knowledge combined with what he saw in the mass tort space of kind of mass client acquisition. And he said, well, what if you go to an Uber or a Lyft or a DoorDash and you start running ads and you sign up 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 Uber drivers. And then you go to Uber and you say, on Monday, I'm going to file 50,000 arbitration demands with AAA. And then in a week, they're going to come to you with a bill for the filing fees of about $2,000 each. So in 2 weeks, you're going to owe $100 million. And, that strategy, especially when you combine it with the fact that you can move to compel as a plaintiff, right? So they go, I don't want to pay. You go to federal court and you give some poor district judge the opportunity to say, look, Uber, you've been moving to compel people into arbitration for 10 years. Turnabout is fair play, pay the damn fees. And, that strategy was pretty successful. I think I wouldn't say anything, but Keller did a press release after I left where they said, in the first couple of years, we've made $200 million doing this. So it was pretty successful. But my part of it, which I really enjoyed, was kind of the logistics part. Because, as you guys know, I think you both have pretty high volume practices. It takes some doing to keep track of 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 people. And it takes some doing to kind of integrate the flow of client intake information into a database in a way that lets you keep track of everything and not have your head explode. And so my life was kind of building first by myself and then gradually glomming on, employees and contractors and helpers to keep the technology side and the kind of personnel client management side rocking and rolling as we built that ship. And eventually that turned into basically a call center where I think when I left, we had, 40, 50 full-time people. And so, it was just a really cool experience to kind of help grow that practice and that company. And frankly, one of the coolest parts was doing it with, resources. Like now I have my own little firm. I do not have the bankroll of a Fortune $500 company. And I really miss the days when it was just going on daddy's credit card, But it was a wonderful experience. And I think, those guys are going to continue to do pretty amazing stuff. But basically, once I'd been there 2 years, things were starting to hit. I got my first kind of sizable payout, and I'd always kind of wanted my own shop and to do my own stuff. And I think, as cool as the stuff at Keller Leichner was. It wasn't really, it wasn't my kind of passion. And, the stuff I've always enjoyed the most is kind of the trial work and getting to know the individual clients. And when you have 300 and something thousand clients, you're not developing close especially from my position as basically the ops guy, you're not developing close relationships. So, I decided to kind of take that money, say thanks, and, finally felt like I had enough runway to start a plaintiff's contingency practice. Um, and so I split and I started my firm about 2 weeks before Chicago went into lockdown for the pandemic. And I've just, been kind of slowly going at it. I think the goal is to focus exclusively on the cases I feel the most strongly about, which are the prisoners' civil rights cases, some of the police misconduct cases, and then I also do sexual harassment and assault in the housing context. So landlords, housing providers that take advantage of tenants. And it'd be nice to build a really strong docket of kind of those cases. But in the meantime, I need to make some money. So I still do some wage theft in the gig economy cases. They're very righteous cases, and they're very kind of straight on the law. So I do a bunch of those, kind of keep some cash flow coming in. And I also do a little bit of consumer class action, just based on the relationships I've made and kind of the skill set you develop in that area. But the hope is in another year or two, it's going to be mostly the civil rights trial work. So there's way longer than you probably wanted, but that's kind of the story of my life.
No, that was great. And Tyson texted me, this is gonna be an easy interview. Yeah, so lots of angles we could go here. I mean, part of me wants to talk about that fear that you had when the baby was coming to go work for the insurance defense firm, but we can skip over that. What did you decide you wanted to have your firm be when you were deciding to leave Keller? How did you frame, not so much like the practice areas, but like the lifestyle? What did you want to have? And I'm sort of giggling to myself because Tyson and I have been talking a lot about planning and how everybody had all these plans. And I've been saying to him and to others, I bet there's some lawyer out there who had all the best plans in the world to start their firm around March 10th of 2020, right before COVID went full bore. So talk a little bit about that if you could.
Sure. So the plan was definitely both this is the kind of law I want to practice, but like you said, a huge part of it for me was this is the kind of life I want to have, and this is the kind of workspace I want to create. I've worked in so many law firms, and I kind of seen what I like and what I don't like, and I don't like the hierarchical, send me an email because my last email had a typo in it bullshit. Our lives are too short for that nonsense. And I think you can still have high standards and do good legal work if if you hold people accountable with some grace when they mess up. And so kind of creating a workplace and having the people who respect each other and act with a sense of calm and dignity is a big part of it, was a huge part of it when I split away. And making sure people on the team feel valued. And right now I don't have any W-2 employees. I have, I think, 7 or 8 independent contractor folks who give me about 5 or 10 hours a week, something like that, kind of all over the globe. And I have one 1099 lawyer who I'm hoping in another couple of months, we're doing a 6-month kind of trial period, and then I'm hoping she'll become a partner if she can still kind of stomach being near me. But no, the plan was very much, two faceted. Like, I don't, at Keller, just the speed at which we were moving, we were all working, crazy hours, weekends, emergencies. When you try to duct tape together a system that can handle that volume, it's a lot of duct tape and it breaks a lot. And so it was, it's chaos. And I think, you know, some people love that. I don't. Like, I actually want to hang out with my family. I don't usually want to work late nights or weekends. And I think that in a high margin business like plaintiff's contingency work, you know, maybe you're giving up the marginal dollars a little bit if you're not willing to grind for years, 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, but you can do fine. And I think at my shop, the priority is people having their lives too.
So
If that
Tom,
answers the question.
I'm going to list your practice areas again. Prisoner civil rights, police misconduct, gig economy wage theft, sexual harassment in housing, consumer/privacy class actions. I'm going to set aside for a second the fact that those are several niches, but those are all practice areas that I feel like no one wants, right? So I feel like because they're tough cases, almost all
Yeah.
of them are tough cases. So I guess how do you manage that? And I'm sure it's easy to get leads because you let people know what you do when it comes to those practice areas, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm giving you all those cases." Because we at our firm we just hired a lawyer, and he's got a specialty in prisoner. We just call them rights cases, but a lot of them are prisoner rights cases, and they're extremely difficult cases. I mean, I'd say all those cases, at least from my standpoint, are really tough cases. So how do you manage that? Because it doesn't seem like you've got like a cash cow in there anywhere. So how do you manage all those different practice areas?
Sure. So, the goal, so there's kind of two ways. One is I don't want to be managing them forever. And so the plan is to kind of not, in order to not run out of cash, to do things I know how to do and understand very, very well. And that's really where the wage theft comes in. They're all arbitrations. And so under some of the arbitrators' rules, the cases basically have to be done in 6 to 8 months. So and I'm so familiar with these defendants and the facts that I can do it very efficiently. Like I have several hundred of those cases, and I ain't working nights and weekends. So I know what I'm doing. I can use I'm a big FileVine proponent. I have 150 templates for that stuff, and I'm just more efficient than they are. So it's pretty that's kind of the answer on that. And then on the really tough stuff, so the civil rights stuff, um that's some of the stuff that keeps me up at night, because you're right, they're tough cases. Often they're very expensive. Another issue is the people who defend them and the people who write checks to settle them are very used to paying 2,500 bucks, $5,000 to settle these cases, because most of the ones they're resolving are pro se, prisoners representing themselves, right? So if you come in and you're like, I want $1.5 million because your guard put my guy in handcuffs, picked him up, dropped him on his face, and stomped on him for 40 minutes, then they're like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, it doesn't even compute. And you're going to trial, you're going near trial in a lot of these. And then, I'll be honest, as a financial matter, that scares me a little, because my hypothesis is if I pick the right cases and I work them hard and I don't take crap money, that the practice will work out, and a couple really strong cases a year, once I've got some momentum, kind of carry the overhead of the firm. But that is an untested hypothesis, right? So I'm in the process of testing, kind of hoping that I'm not putting my nest egg and all my time into something that isn't ultimately going to work. As far as getting cases, it's actually in Chicago, there's such a good, strong bar of people who have just been suing the cops and suing the prisons forever, that it's actually really hard to get good cases here. And frankly, most of my good cases are in places where, no one does this work. Which again, just is trading one set of, it's trading problems on the back end for, ease on the front end. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's if I wanted to do kind of easy money law, I think there are other things I know how to do. But I think anybody who's worked a couple of the prisoners cases and seen some of the stuff these guys put up with, it's impactful. I'm sure, just like the way insurance companies treat PI plaintiffs or the way the government treats, people with righteous immigration claims, it just pisses, some things just piss you off. And if you can make money kind of attacking the stuff that pisses you off, why not?
We're talking to Tom Case today. He's a civil rights and other kind of lawyer up in Chicago. And we're glad we now have someone to refer our prisoner cases to.
Please.
Our civil rights cases to. Tom, what do you like the most about running your law firm? And if you were to give away some of your responsibilities, I know you like the tech stuff, but if you were to give away some of your responsibilities, what would you give away and what would you keep?
I like the investigatory stuff when I have time to do it. So, for example, I got a prisoner's rights case out of Louisiana. And it's the one I kind of was not really joking about when I gave that example to Tyson. My guy got in a short scuffle with another guard in a housing unit, that he got handcuffed, and then he got frog marched to a dark corner and they beat the shit out of him. Bad. And they say, no, we didn't touch him. All the scars on his face in the medical assessment video that was taken after the beating, the fact that he looks like Hamburger, all that happened in the third, 10-second scuffle on the housing unit. And, what I've been trying to do is find the 60 other inmates that were in the housing unit and saw exactly what happened, who can testify that when this guy walked out of the housing unit, he was fine. Where I'm actually deposing one of them in about an hour and a half. And I love kind of digging in the records and doing the kind of guerrilla discovery. It's also a big part of the sexual harassment in housing cases. You find out, usually you can find 25 other women who've been harassed in exactly the same way by the guy. And I really enjoy that stuff, and I don't get to do enough of it, given the other demands. What I would give away, I think, man, I wish I could give away certain opposing counsel. I can't do that, but there are some folks who just drive me nuts. And and it's always discovery, right? It's always like, I've asked you for something completely reasonable, and you give me some boilerplate objection that doesn't hack it in federal court, and then I got to chase you in front of an indifferent judge who's going to let you off the hook. And that part of the practice is just exhausting. But it's also so important, because if you don't, nowadays, like, the discovery request is just foreplay. Like, if you don't actually go and get the motion to compel order, you're not getting anything. So, it's so important, but man, is it exhausting.
Tom, how old are you right now?
Damn. I didn't know you were gonna ask tough questions. God, I think I turned 38 this year.
Okay, so we're the same.
1983, is that right?
So in 22 years, when you're 60, what's your firm look like?
I would like to have, 4 or 5 or maybe 6 kind of niche practice areas. So I think not prisoners' rights writ large, but like, I want to do failure to protect cases where the injuries are X, Y, or excessive force cases like this. And I think that's actually another way to kind of manage tough cases, is you just pick the well-worn path and you focus on those. So I'd like to have a few of those, because I think, I'm all, look, Congress could repeal 1983 any day, and the world can change, right? So I don't want to be hyper focused in one or a group of related things. I'd like to have a little bit of diversification. I'd like to have, a good team of people who kind of want to have their lives and really want to do this work, and who value that balance like I do. I would like to have everything that can be done automatically being done automatically. I really, I think it's something I learned from you guys on your show, but I really do write down things that I think can be automated or templatized, or turned into a process that I can outsource to, somebody in Latvia for, $6 an hour, and to them it's $30 an hour. I really want to get there because I think you just save so much time and create so much value by kind of leveraging those, those wage rates and virtual assistants and that. I'd like to be able to do exactly how much law I want to do and no more. Like I'd love to be running the firm, and if I want to have one or two cases where I'm the lead lawyer, great. But if I don't, great. I'd just like to have that flexibility. And I think I'd like to have I'd like the firm to have a reputation as a place people can come to kind of have a decent life, do all right in the wallet, and really learn a system for practicing plaintiff side law that they could take with them if they want to leave.
I suspect that we have a lot of listeners who have a civil rights case over in the corner that they haven't looked at in a while, and they probably got some federal judge with some harsh deadlines and all that stuff. What do you say to the people that think they can dabble in this kind of work that you're doing?
Every one of these cases that winds up with a lawyer rather than just pro se, I think is a good thing. Because I do think that, in a lot of the federal district courts, if you're pro se, you're not really getting a judge, you're getting a pro se law clerk. And, much like judges, some of the pro se law clerks are wonderful. Some of them are always looking for a way to dump your case. So I think every one of these cases that gets a lawyer, it increases the chances it's going to get a real look. And I think you can always be helpful. And I would encourage people to dabble, but I'd encourage the people who are really dabbling, there are great resources like the Ninth Circuit has kind of a law outline for 1983. I think the Northern District of Illinois has a handbook for prisoners' civil rights cases. Wherever you're practicing, they likely have, some resource for lawyers trying these cases because, like a lot of times it's somebody who's appointed who's never done it before. So a lot of the courts really try to help. Make good use of those things because they will really help you out. Because although the law is complicated, a lot of the legal issues in these cases are, if not settled, at least, people know exactly where the pressure points are. So there's a lot of really good free resources out there that people should use. And I'd say for the folks who probably have a few of them in the corner, if one of the best things I think they can do is bring a PI's lawyer, a good PI lawyer's attitude towards proving up a damages case to these cases, because that's kind of the one place where I think the really good civil rights bar is not as good as the really good catastrophic injury, wrongful death kind of PI bar is, showing, proving, focusing on the value of especially non-economic losses. And, you see a lot of trials in these cases where just like the conduct is horrific, like, intentionally framing someone for a murder, they didn't commit, horrific. And, people spend 10 years in a hellhole of a prison for something they didn't do. And then you get damage awards that, like, if you had a kind of David Ball approach, or if you had like a Nick Rowley doing it, you get $1 billion. But a lot of my civil rights lawyer colleagues, were so focused on like all the kind of chintzy constitutional law, qualified immunity nonsense that sometimes I think we don't focus enough on, proving up the human story so that we can score some big numbers at trial.
Sounds like a fantastic opportunity for you, Tom. So
That's what I'm hoping, man. Like I'm hoping that I can get over the reluctance of people to pay for these cases. Because, I'll tell you already, every time I drop a demand in one of these, people just look at me like I'm from Mars. And I'm like, you know what? That's because what you know. Jury don't know what you know. Like, jury's going to know what we tell them. So, you want to roll the dice, let's roll the dice.
I like that. I like that ego too. That got me pumped up a little bit. All right, we do need to wrap things up. Before I do, I'm gonna stop what I normally do, Jimmy. I almost went right into it. I want to remind everyone about the conference. Okay, conference is coming up in October. It's 11th, 12th, and 13th of October. The 11th is the guild day. Okay. The 12th and 13th of the conference. And we are going to sell out. So I'm going to tell you, go get your tickets because you're going to run out of time. So get your tickets now because we will sell out. MaxLawCon.com. Get your tickets. And also join us in the guild if you're interested in the guild, maxlawguild.com. And then also, if you're not ready for either of those, go to the big group on Facebook, get involved there. There's a lot of great activity every single day. Jimmy, what's your hack of the week?
So I'm always in this struggle with my phone and the distraction machine that it is. And one of the things that I've done recently is I redid my home screen. So the first screen with the, I had lots of folders and things, and I found like to get to FileVine, I had to go through like 6 buttons. So I said, forget all that. I'm going to move the crap that I never use off the home screen. And so in doing so, I also decided, I read it somewhere, to put all my social media on the farthest screen. So now when I pick up my phone, I have like my Kindle and stuff that I want to spend my time on, and the stuff that I don't need to be wasting time on, I put it way at the back on the back screen. And just that has made me more mindful of the time that I've spent on social media.
Well, let me give you a tip on top of a hack. Ready for this? I think this is our first time ever. This is exclusive.
Wow.
Put it in a folder. Move it to the farthest screen and put it into a folder. So boom, now you have an extra layer.
Yep.
I don't have any of my social media apps out of a folder because it's just distracting. And get rid of all the damn bubbles. Go into your settings, change it so you don't have all those little bubbles, so you're not reminded of it. So, it's a good one, Jimmy. All right, Tom, you know the routine. What is your tip or hack of the week?
Sure. So I was thinking a lot about what's kind of the one thing that I learned that might help people. And, especially in building the systems at Keller, what was driven home to me is if you try to build it 100% right, exactly how you need it before you start doing the thing. So you want to build a system for PI cases, and you go and you try to build out FileVine 100% of the way, all the way, do all your do it all. You're going to get 85% of it wrong. And the only way to build systems is incrementally. And you just do it once, even if it's inefficient. Do each step once, inefficient, learn about the step. Then after you've learned about it, then you figure out how to automate it, what the process should be, and you just gradually build from there. It's that kind of gradual incremental glomming on of step 1 process, and then step 2, and then step 3. When we did that, we succeeded. When we tried to be like, oh no, we got to wait 6 months to try to build out Salesforce on this and that, we just wasted oodles of time and money, because by the time you're done with that, you've learned that what you thought you needed isn't what you needed. So just don't sweat it. Just start building and doing, and you'll get there.
I love that. I saw that in the form that you filled out, and it was one of the things I wanted to get to. We just didn't have time, so I'm glad you brought it up because I thought that was a great little line that you had in there. So that's perfect.
Lots of pain and blood behind that learning.
For sure. I think we've all been there. So, all right. So my tip of the week is if you need a text function for your firm, or you can even do it with a phone call function. We had something that was a little bit a use case outside of what we use FileVine for, because FileVine's got text messaging built into it. It's fantastic. I love it. We had a different use case for it, and we looked into and we adopted Twilio. Twilio, I'm not sure if it's been recommended on the podcast before, but we've been using over the last week or two, and it's really good. And there's no lag. A lot of these services, whenever you've got text messaging, there is a lag. And with this, it's not. It's instantaneous. And so whenever we've got a certain lead form that we fill out, once it's filled out, text messages go out, and it's really great. We love it. So I highly recommend Twilio. Jim, you're shaking your head. Were you shaking your head at Twilio? I'm curious.
I love Twilio. I'm shaking my head because you're on this phase now where you're working with Kelsey and you're throwing out all these things that I've been doing for years as if they're
That's
brand
funny.
new.
Well, it's funny because he didn't recommend. It's funny. He and I we're sort of working together, and then coming together, and then showing our work, and then we're not working actual together. It's like more like sharing the work kind of a thing. It's interesting. So he didn't even bring that up to me. I just kind of came to that to my own. I had no idea that you were using Twilio, but we really haven't had a use. We haven't had a need for it until recently. The way the way we use Fava, you've got the text messaging built in, but we're using Twilio to add in some additional functionality. So it's pretty cool. So, all right, Tom, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a lot of fun. Like Jim said, this was a really easy interview because you're a great talker, which is fantastic. So that's awesome. But thank you so much. Hopefully a lot of people learned a lot of what from what you had to say. So thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. This is a great resource for everybody. I appreciate you guys doing it.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Take
See you, bud.
care.
You too.
See ya.